Hello again, everyone. This is Ken Kibler, Director of Client Profitability with eTruckBiz. We're just about a minute shy of the top of the hour. The attendee list is growing, so please sit tight and we will get going shortly after the top of the hour. Thank you very much. Hello again, everyone. Ken Kibler, Director of Client Profitability for eTruckBiz. It looks like the attendee list has leveled off. Welcome back after a long holiday weekend. Hope every profitable weekend. We're going to cover several issues today and some of the challenges of profitability, uh, as well as some of our normal topics. So if you have any questions, once again, please put them in either the Q&A or the chat. And without further ado, I'll turn this over to Jeff Walzak. Thank you very much.
Okay, it's always we need to make sure you know that eTruckBiz is not door sponsored, approved, or otherwise affiliated with FedEx Corporation. Okay, I don't know if anybody's wondering what happened to the volume last week. Well, let's look at the pickup side first. Uh-oh. It's not looking good. That ain't good. So, yep, there's a 4th of July holiday in there, and that happened. That's not good. Packages down. How about over in delivery side? Think it's any different? Well, no. In fact, it's actually really not good on the delivery side. Those levels, I didn't put it in here, but those levels go way back to pre-strike levels. It's actually not good at all. So with the drop in volume, wonder what happened to the productivity. Again, remember, one of the things we got to do is demonstrate proficiency to FedEx. Just saying, attachment A2, schedule 6 or section 6.2. So anyways, let's hope we didn't get crushed on productivity. Well, good news is, look at those routes. Dropped like a rock. That's good. And yeah, look at that.
Yeah.
Stops per dispatch. They look, I mean, you always want this better, but given what happened to the volume, that's pretty good. So good job. Hopefully, did it happen because we managed that? Or did it happen because people didn't show up to work? I don't know. But in the end, that's a good thing. And by the way, somebody's out there in webinar land. This is I'm not going to say who this is unless you want to speak up, because you can if you want to. But look at that. Look at those stops per dispatch, 98, 125, 135. I've talked to you. You know who you are, hopefully out there. And you know, 130, 140 is all I can do. I got it. That's all I can do. Well, look at that on the 6th of July, 175 average stops per dispatch. I don't know if anybody wants to take credit for that, but you know who you are. It's a good job. It's a good job. So in the news, okay, I don't know, does anybody remember this? FedEx faces U.S. racketeering lawsuit by former delivery contractor. This was out in the West Coast. A company that FedEx once contracted to deliver packages on the California-Oregon border has sued FedEx. The case was going to threaten the cost savings and restructuring through which FedEx has been shifting, and 6,000 contractors. The case appears to be the first Now, this is important. The case appears to be the first where a former FedEx ground contractor has sued the global delivery giant under the U.S. Racketeering, Influence, and Corrupt Organizations Act, the RICO Act, said attorney Tough Guy. So good job for that. Do you remember that? You guys remember that?
I do remember it.
Well, a federal judge sends FedEx Contractor's racketeering claim to arbitration. A federal judge on, it was Monday when this happened, ruled that a small business contracted to deliver packages for FedEx in California must arbitrate with FedEx over claims it made against the company of racketeering and other alleged legal violations. In granting FedEx Ground's motion to compel arbitration, is that really how it went? The judge wrote that PYNQ failed to show it would be unconscionable to require arbitration. Most legal disputes between FedEx Ground and its contractors are resolved outside of the courtroom. Well, okay. Well, then this happened. Former FedEx Ground contractor files for bankruptcy liquidation. PYNQ Logistics filed suit against FedEx under the RICO statute. California company, we know about that. Sued against the global delivery giant FedEx in November over alleged illegal business practices. Filed for bankruptcy. PYNQ Logistics Services Inc., doing business as PLS Inc., California, filed its petition. Okay, in its petition, PYNQ lists its assets of up to $50,000. Assets of $50,000. And its liabilities of up to $10 million. The company, which has up to 49 creditors, maintains that no funds will be available for distribution to unsecured creditors after administrative fees are paid. The attorney, Trang Do did not respond to, and this is a Freightways article requesting seeking comment. Oh, that's interesting. The largest creditors with secured claims listed in the petition are Byline Bank of Washington, D.C., owed more than $460,000, and Magarino Enterprises, Inc. of Crescent City, California, owed over $385,000. The petition, which lists Tara Wright as president, states that Byline Bank repossessed 4 of PYNQ's delivery trucks in March. The largest unsecured creditors include Wayne and Tara Wright of Pleasanton, owed more than $213,000, and everybody's owed money, and everybody's owed money. According to PYNQ's financials, the company did not operate in 2024. Its petition states the former FedEx ground contractor made nearly $527,000 in 23 and over $1.6 million in 22. Interesting, huh? Well, according to the court documents, PYNQ sued FedEx Ground, alleging the unit violated the RICO Act by fraudulently inducing the company to enter into a contract. So they fraudulently induced the company into entering in a contract with the understanding that it would be independent, but was instead subject to controls that require it to function like an employee. Former airline pilot Tara Wright founded PNQ. She invested nearly $1.13 million to become an independent service provider and bought 2 FedEx ground delivery routes on the California-Oregon border. However, In May 2023, after several attempts by PYNQ to renegotiate its contracts, the suit alleges FedEx Ground sent termination letters to PYNQ regarding its contracts and claims the delivery giant sold one of its contracts. The Eureka route, without PYNQ's consent, also failed to compensate the contractor. The suit also alleges there was no time to sell the second contract, the Brookings route, which was not profitable without the Eureka contract. So court filings allege that on May 17th, last day of the contract, FedEx Ground had started recruiting PNQ. FedEx Ground had started recruiting the drivers without Wright's knowledge and before she was able to notify them about their contract terminations. Wow. Well, let's review. Just so you know, by signing your contract, CSPs have agreed via Section 16 of the operating agreement that A, contract disputes are to be handled in arbitration, which is good because at least the Ninth Circus Court figured that one out, that you can't just sue FedEx. Now, they tried to do it under a different statute. Interesting, but that didn't go anywhere. So they said, nope, you got to go to arbitration. Also, by signing your contract, CSPs have agreed via Section 16 of the operating agreement that CSPs agree not to attempt class action lawsuits. If you remember, and it didn't say anything in those articles, but that was the whole thing there. They were trying to orchestrate yet another class action lawsuit versus FedEx. So there's so many things wrong with all that. I don't even want to get into it, but there is something we want to make sure that we get across here. So this was the first time, I think, that the contract was sued, or FedEx was sued via the RICO Act, and guess what? That held up. It's that way. But just while we have the hood up here, and I know we've got several newbies out there that are on here, just don't want to get too far into it, but for any newbies or anybody else, where did Ms. Wright get the idea that she could do this? No idea?
I have no idea.
Well, let's review something here. It's important to understand what some unscrupulous brokers might be trying to sell you. CSPs don't buy or own routes. FedEx doesn't sell anybody routes. And the whole, I don't know, jargon, whatever the common way to refer to everything is buying routes. That's not how it goes. Ms. PNQ was led to believe that she owned routes. And I guess, I don't know what she was led to believe, but somehow she wasted a lot of money and time on that lawsuit. As a CSP, you own a transportation company, and that transportation company has a contract to provide transportation services to FedEx. Okay. Hopefully everybody gets it. You don't own, you operate routes. You can call them routes. That's fine. You can call them whatever you want. You don't own routes. You own the right to service your contract. Okay. Moving on. If you recall, last week we looked at FedEx's margins for last year, right? And that was good. They were up from 6.9% back in 23 to 7%. That's a tenth of a move up. But that's good for a company that big. That's very encouraging. We looked at all that. That's good stuff there. So remember, what is an operating margin? An operating margin measures how much profit a company makes on a dollar of revenue, not sales, after paying for variable costs of operation, such as wages and other things. And there's a whole list of things. We're gonna go through some of that here in a second, but important to understand what that term means, right? So the question we have is, do you know what your operating margin is? Do you know? Or if you think you know, do you know what it should be? Where it should be at for the CSA you're operating? Do you know that? We've recently introduced some financial tools that make many varied types of analysis and decision-making a whole lot easier. John Speed, current successful CSP, might add, was recently offered 3 different CSAs in the same terminal. Some of our new capabilities helped him and his team evaluate the whole situation, right? So I'm hoping, well, just before we talk to Mr. Speed here, we want to take a look at some of the things that some of these new reports and whatnot that we can do. So there was an estimated high and estimated low revenue there. There was all kinds of general administrative expenses that we estimated high and low, budgeted expenses, budgeted EBITDA, budgeted owner's benefit, what the operating expenses broken down probably looked like. There's a whole section, I didn't even put it on here. There's a whole bunch of other things in this report, but in trying to keep things brief, tried to do some of these things. And then the third section here was the opportunity analysis, where guess what we found? We found that the targeted operating margin, in this case, and each one of these CSAs had a different one, but I think this is the one he chose, and this one had the highest targeted operating margin. Remember, that's a big deal, right? It's a big deal for FedEx, and hopefully it's a big deal for you guys as well. So we want to ask Mr. Speed some questions. So the first thing I'd like to know is, can we hear you, or can you say something, Mr. Speed? Hopefully.
Okay. John, are your mic is muted, John. If you can unmute your microphone. There you go.
How's that?
There we go. How you doing, Mr. Speed?
Doing great. How about yourself, Jeff?
Fantastic. We'd like to try to ask you some questions, if you don't mind.
I'm all ears.
Okay, so is everybody out there, if I can figure out how to work this? Okay, the first question we'd like to ask you is, how did this analysis help you with your decision?
It laid out a really easy guide for me to look at each line item of expenses, and it actually it added up all my expenses and then told me exactly what my margin was going to be. So for me, it was a really easy way to look at the contract and how to budget for fuel, labor, all the line items or the cost items that we have to look at. And,
so it gave you a real, oh, sorry, go ahead.
And I felt like really, after I looked at it, I could beat some of the line items. And if I could, there's going to be more net margin, or if I could be more productive than FedEx thinks I can be. And I typically am more productive than they think I should be.
And we can attest to that. Mr. Speed usually beats the standards. So, there's some of you folks on here that I talk to all the time, or talk to this week, whatever. You can do better. than some of the numbers we look at. It can happen, and Mr. Speed is an example of somebody that does it. So we got another question for you. What do you like about these reports?
For me, it just gives me a quick look at the contract and makes it it's an easy guide for me to look at when making a decision on a new contract. So it's very helpful. And I would think for new people out there that are just getting in the business, man, it's something that's very important to you. It's something that I searched out when I first found eTruck Biz. I don't know. It's been I've been in business 8 years, so it's probably been 6 years when I finally found eTruck Biz. Maybe it took me about a year and a half of being in the business, but I was very glad when I found them because they opened the gates to profitability for me and my company.
Excellent. Let's see if I can figure out how to keep this going. Would you recommend this to other CSPs?
I do all the time.
Well, not just eTruck Biz, but especially these financial analyses. And you've seen several of them now, so you think it's worth it?
I think the one this last set that you guys put together are the best because, knowing your what your revenue per stop and your revenue per dispatch is great, but knowing what your cost is even better. Okay, and so if you know both of what those things are in this business, you're gonna be successful and make money, and you can also control how much money you want to make. The other thing you have to do, as business, if you're a new person, is never, ever, ever stop recruiting.
Good job. Extra bonus. That is correct. And people stop recruiting because they say they can't afford it, they don't have time, they have 10,000 excuses, or they try to do it cheaply and they get crappy results. And guess what happens after they do that? They get in trouble. So anyway, good.
Hey,
So,
Jeff, can I ask a question to John?
yeah, absolutely.
Okay, John, previously you had been offered other CSAs, correct, before these three came along?
Correct.
And were some of those, through consultation with us, deemed not very good offers?
Yeah, we determined that they were not good offers.
So I think that's a heads up that sometimes, free CSAs that are offered can be bad. I always use the term drug deals give samples away for a reason. But you need to be careful when you're offered CSAs and have somebody who really understands the business take a look at it. And that's what, through these reports that we've developed, it is to really help prevent you from taking on a bad CSA or a bad contract. Thanks, Jeff.
So another thing here, it says, how will this help you ultimately get started with this new CSA? I think you kind of already said it, but do you want to make a comment about that?
I'm sorry, what was the question again, Jeff?
Well, as you get started with your new CSA, because I know that you're about to get started with one of those, and I think you said it before, but I think it's worth repeating. When we do the analysis of a CSA, and we can do this in a lot of different ways. It's evaluating the new ones, evaluating what you already have, evaluating in conjunction with your negotiation, whatever it is. As you get going under a new contract, let's put it that way, how do those reports really help you? You think you already said it, but I think the folks need to hear it one more time.
Well, knowing what my costs are very important, and also the other reports that are provided by eTruck Biz, which is your revenue per stop and your revenue per dispatch, and the amount of dispatches that you dispatch each week, all very important so that you can make money. And
Yeah,
I
right.
live by it, and we run a highly profitable entity.
Yes, you do. And I guess what you already said this, I'm just going to say it again. It's not just, it's yes, you got to understand your revenue and how the different working parts of your revenue go, but it's what does it cost you to produce that revenue? How much does it cost you to perform a stop? How much does it cost per package? I mean, it's the different cost elements that are very difficult to keep in mind as folks operate these businesses. Really, the reason we're going down this path is as you enter into the express world, or as you start getting whether now termed optimized CSAs, and the first batch of those are rolling out. Not the folks, there's some folks on here that, yes, you already have some express, but not like it is now as the new batch is getting rolled out, or the new phase 2 of the rollout, I guess. You absolutely, Mr. Speed, I think it's very important that the folks know you have to watch your expenses just like you watch your revenue now. Because the folks are doing different things, right? They're not just doing 5 days a week going business to business. There's a lot of moving expense parts now, and if you don't have a grasp on your expenses, it can get bad. So, okay. Is that right or wrong?
You're absolutely right. And I watch my expenses daily. But we have our own we have a balance sheet, we have a P&L, so I know exactly what mine are doing every day.
Okay, good. All right, so as we mentioned last, I'm sorry. Well, yeah, we're gonna get some questions here in a second.
Your P&L statement, John, that's not just something you do once every year, is it?
No, it's updated. It's updated weekly by my accounting company.
Right, but you're going to use the new eTruck Biz tool when it comes out, though, aren't you?
Absolutely.
Got to get a plug in there. All right, so last week we told folks that the ASM program, you better get in while the getting's good, and I think we're about to have to shut it off here in a second, but just so you know, if those of you out there that aren't on here that are interested, it's time to get in touch with Becca. Let her show you what it's all about and get you going if you haven't already been there. So just want to know if there's any other questions or anything else.
I don't see any questions yet. Just one of the things that I wanted to emphasize, those reports are extremely valuable for your current contract as well, not just new ISP contract offers. Because a lot of times you can use that data to talk with the negotiator to get BDS involved, and your senior management involved. And we've had some good success, but you have to know, as Jeff said, you have to know what your expenses are, and you got to make sure that you are productive. Because as Jeff puts up here every week, you have to demonstrate proficiency, and FedEx wants to do business with proficient contractors. So it's critical that you are proficient and that you do understand your cost and that your costs are in line. And then once you know your costs are in line and you beat the proficiency that FedEx has put forth, you can make more money. And that's what made John Speed very successful. He's able to beat his stops per or the budgeted dispatches per week significantly in his other operations. So therefore, he knows he's going to be successful in this other operation. And we do have a question here. And it says, is the network seeing a shift in volume? In the West, we are seeing weekend volume drop on Monday, Tuesday. Weekend volume drop, and then Monday, Tuesday increase. Station says it's due to sorting by due date, which has been in the works for some time. You want to talk about that on the net, how the network's being, Jeff, how they're utilizing the network now?
Well, I mean, when the volume drops, any kind of shifting anything around gets more pronounced. If that's what the question is, I don't know. It says
I
in the
think it's
what?
more, it's kind of more about working premiums.
Yeah.
In fact, I talked to a senior manager close to where I am, and they did quit working the premiums, and that has spread out the volume per se. So what it's done is save dispatches on Monday, and then it spread, basically, it saved contractors at least 1 to 2 dispatches per week in this building. So FedEx is trying to do that to stop the big spike. I tell you, years and years ago when we were there, senior vice president of operation always wanted to speed up the network, speed up the network. Well, there are costs involved, and FedEx has realized that. And if you are seeing those shifts in volume, continue to look at the historical volume that is stored in the e-truck business and see what those changes have done, because it will help you with your DRO planning at night as well. But I think that's what he meant by it, Jeff, is not, they're not working the premiums. And especially if you're, John, I know you're out in Arizona and on the West Coast, the East Coast, where you do see a lot of premiums. And if the station does not work those and then sorts them, it should spread that volume out. And
It
as I
also make your inbound package report a hell of a lot better too, if they quit jumping service.
correct. And as I said, the station here close to where I am, it was able to save each CSP, 1 to 2 dispatches a week by doing that. So, because I know a lot of people complain about all the bulk on Mondays and having to run extra bulk truck, or dare I say the word I hate, cleanup routes, which are the most unprofitable things that you can run. So, hopefully, if your station is not doing that, please get with them, talk to them, because they want to sort the stuff on the due dates. If not at your station, at your parent hub as well. Okay. That looks like the last question. Jeff or Bob, Carrie, anything to add at all? Okay. If you do have a contract negotiation coming up, I encourage you to enlist our services. Carrie is absolutely the best business. The reports that we've recently added are game changers to help you really negotiate a good contract and then operate your business the way it's supposed to be operated. Okay, so we will be back here again next Tuesday. Once again, watch that volume. Should be light for maybe today and tomorrow. Hopefully come back on Thursday, but once again, July is traditionally a very, very light month. So keep an eye on your volume, keep an eye on your dispatches, and please have a safe and profitable week. Thank you very much.